2024 marks 30 years of democracy for South Africa. And with this highly contested election just around the corner, many South Africans are still questioning what governance and leadership they should find themselves under.
And amongst the many South Africans is the youth. That makes up 20.4 million citizens, 63% of the population, Doug. Many of whom are still asking themselves the question, why am I even voting?
And that's exactly what we are here to unpack today. Welcome to Choose or Lose, the youth's take on our democracy, the state of the nation, and addressing the simple question, why vote? My name is Eugene Koza.
And I am Lerai. And this is a parliamentary gathering like no other, because we're going to be joined by my peers, who are movers and shakers in their own respective fields. And you know what I love? They are so vocal about what they stand for.
Yeah, because my peers are at work. Time to meet the parliament.
My name is Zuleika Patel. I am an activist, best-selling author, international speaker, and founder. The core of my work is to advocate, educate, and empower. My one belief for the country is that we one day have a future which is just, anti-racist, and it's a future where each South African's human rights are realized.
My name is Tshepiso Malema, the founder and CEO of Gamers Territory, an award-winning startup that is aiming to bring the fourth industrial revolution into the townships and rural areas. After all, ke nantwana ya kasi.
My name is Zetu Gola. I'm a marketing strategist in the music industry behind some of the most award-winning albums in the country. I'm also an advocate for gender-based violence, and I also advocate for homelessness in South Africa. I also really hate corruption.
My name is Nicholas van Jaarsveld. I'm a digital content creator with a focus on video game content and political content. And my belief for this country is in the power of diversity, cultural and social diversity. And I believe that that's our superpower as South Africans.
My name is Mandisa Zulumeka Nduna. I'm an award-winning actress and hip-hop artist. And I'm a big fan of people being exactly who they are.
My name is Takhli Dwaba, and I am an entertainment journalist, and I do cultural commentary. My aim in South Africa is to bridge the gap between top management, which are political leaders, and ground forces.
Welcome, Parliament. Thank you for joining us.
You guys are our honorable members, so just remember that as we're speaking today.
So our icebreaker question is, what do you know about democracy, the struggle, and where we find ourselves today in this country? Kala lapo Zuleka watate. You struggled a lot.
She did.
Yeah, at a young age.
We live in a country which the majority is predominantly Black African, but that majority is not reflected in the economy. It doesn't have access to capital, access to wealth, is not the land-owning majority. A lot of people ask me why I always want to talk about race, is because in South Africa, we live in a country where your entire life's outcome is determined by your race. And so you can't ignore the element of race in a country like South Africa, especially now, because it's going to determine your access to healthcare, your access to education, service delivery where you live, opportunities where you live, and whether or not you will still be trapped in a generational cycle of poverty. So we can't ignore race. And when you talk about race, you can't not talk about apartheid. You can't not talk about colonialism. And so we have to connect our issues back there.
What do you think are some of the milestones of our democracy?
Okay, so I would say the first is having the constitution that was built up. And I would say the second is democracy. But 30 years later, I can say that that was an illusion because we no longer exercise as a majority our rights to either one of those things. So those are the biggest takeaways from all of this. It's almost like the longer we've progressed into democracy, the less people are exercising their democratic right. And that's why a lot of people feel powerless, simply being unaware of what is owed to you for simply existing.
So Eugene, I guess that's what we need to discuss today, right?
Yes, and that's the purpose of this discussion, to engage on every contentious issue affecting youth and their vote in this country. Lerai has certain prompts prepared that will trigger conversation. These prompts are statements, opinions, or hot takes that you will either agree or disagree with. Ni ready, Musne?
Yeah.
Sure.
You guys are ready?
Let's go.
Okay. Do you agree or do you disagree? I'm proud of how far this country has come in the last 30 years.
Are we allowed to be in between?
Medium rare.
You can. You can be in between.
Sometimes.
I'd like to semi-disagree and semi-agree.
There's certainly things to be proud of, definitely. But there are also some things that we can't be proud of. Look, we're a young democracy, and
Are we?
We're very much still considered a youth on paper in terms of the number of years we've been a democracy. So I think there's a lot of room to grow. I think that we need to put more pressure on ourselves as a country, but I also feel like there's some grace that needs to be afforded in some instances.
I don't think grace necessarily. We can't ignore the fact that there needs to be accountability because many of the issues and social injustices, children falling into pit toilets, people literally losing their lives from service delivery, people not completing their degrees because NSFAS failed them. We can't say we're going to give grace where necessary. There are a few, very few places where you can give grace, but at most we need to be more accountable as a country because any challenge that we face as a country, any social injustice is man-made, and any man-made social injustice has a man-made solution.
And can be solved by a woman.
It's whether or not there's no, not by a woman. It can be solved by a young person.
So I can.
It can be solved by a young person.
The accountability thing. It also comes with being accountable to the law. We have so many people in power who, within this period of democracy and change, wielded the power to be able to do good, but there's greed involved, there's corruption involved. So they go from grace period to now really just taking advantage of a system that works for them.
Are you agreeing, disagreeing, or are you in the middle?
I'm in the middle.
So far we've got 3 accounts of in between. And the reason why I asked, are we so young, is because you, I know, this is something that you're passionate about when it comes to be. No. Don't let him lie to you. Please don't let him do that. You mentioned the fact that as much as you're young, it can't be an excuse. And the word that I'm hearing come up a lot is accountability. Accountability.
May I just add that by grace, I'm not talking about making excuses for people. It's not a free pass.
Got it.
Especially for people in power who've chosen to take on that role. Some cases need grace, but absolutely agree 100% about the accountability. That's why we're having these conversations in the first place. You know?
But I mean, as an average person that stays...
Average?
I'm an average person.
When?
Eugene, please.
How many followers do you have?
As an average person, you know, I wouldn't have survived, obviously, during apartheid, right?
Never.
Because I talk a lot, obviously, and I'm enjoying the freedom. I'm enjoying the freedom of press right now, which I really appreciate in democracy right now, right? But for the average-minded people, we're satisfied with, like, service delivery here, and they would get grants, we get the 350s and stuff like that. So there's some sort of, like, satisfaction. And obviously, yes, that's the grace they're mentioning, they're talking about, right? There's free education. NSFAS is, I'm a beneficiary of NSFAS. So that's done something for me. So I'll give him grace for that. As much as I want
But
change.
around the grants, I think that that's also an issue on its own. People aren't satisfied with the grants because the grants can't even meet your basic needs as according to how inflation in this country is growing.
I'm 25 years old today. I grew up to my grandmother's grant. She was, I don't know how much she was, she can make 1.3. We survived. I'm here today. That's the grace I'm talking about.
And Nicholas, are you proud of how far we've come? I mean, you're beard.
You know,
Come far.
yes, while I think we have a really long way to go, and it's unfortunate that the human lifespan is like an average of 70 years, because we've only had this semi-post-apartheid democracy for about 30.
Unless you're a politician, you live longer.
Yeah, exactly. I do think we have a long way to go, but I also think that to avoid a very defeatist attitude, we must also be grateful for the progress that we've made.
And that's the tricky part, right? It's when you're in between, you're like, we could do so much better, but I'm so glad we're not like that country. That's the general
and also
energy.
Yeah, and like also being careful not to get complacent about that as well.
Mr. Malema.
Yeah, man, I think I share the same sentiments with everyone. Do agree that I'm proud. And also talking about grace, I think our leaders also didn't have a blueprint post-apartheid. There was no blueprint of how to lead a country, especially when it was given to us as blacks. So I think right now it's more like we're still on a trial version, and now we need new leaders because we've learned from, the people who are currently leading us. So I think we've learned from their mistakes, and now I think it's time whereby we need new leaders who will actually take us to, new levels.
Okay. Leading us into our next prompt, I want to start us off with the stats just to put your mind in the right space. A third, that's 35% of South Africans who are registered to vote, say that there's no political party that represents their views. So, do you agree or do you disagree? I don't think any political party sees me.
I will agree on behalf of my followers because of how much socio-political content I make. And there are thousands of people in the comments who feel exactly that way.
Not seen.
So although not seen by anybody, to a state of panic and confusion, we're so close to elections and people don't know where to turn.
Do you think that state of panic and confusion is deliberately induced by the people in power so that the youth don't partake?
I think it's
Sleeping pill inside.
It's a little bit of that, and it's also because people don't actually look at manifestos of every single political party. So they're not aware that there actually is a political party out there that might see them, but they believe that if I vote for that political party and ignore the big evils, I'm going to contribute to the problem.
I'm a big advocate for preferential voting, which has seen a lot of success in countries like Australia, where to avoid the sort of binary political voting system that we find ourselves in here, between obviously the ANC and the DA, and then, in America, you've got Republicans versus Democrats, inherently very polarizing. To the point where people just kind of feel disempowered when it comes to voting. With preferential voting, you put more than one vote, delineating based on your interest in that party. So if the party you vote for first doesn't win, then your vote carries over to your secondary or your third preferences.
And speaking to my average, below average people, people that are obviously struggling and stuff like that, we resonate more with parties that understand poverty. Somebody that will come there and build me an RDP house, or will come there and give me mukabel, or a feeding scheme and stuff like that. Those are the parties that we resonate with.
By show of hands, who feels seen, wanted, or even needed by a political party here?
Not by the one I want, though.
The classic case scenario.
I feel understood. No, I feel seen also, but not by who I want, but I feel seen.
But what do you mean feel wanted by the political party? Isn't it more do you feel
Campaigning. I have a theory that, and this is my
Personal opinion.
personal opinion and my conspiracy theory. Major political parties do not want the youth vote. That's why they haven't made any effort to try and get you guys to the polling station.
I absolutely agree.
I think so.
I absolutely agree.
Generally, they're working with content creators now. The manifestos will be there, encouraging the youth to vote, and so we have the power to change the narrative.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's so tricky because access is a big thing, right? So when we speak about reading party manifestos and going on websites, the people who do that are the people that have registered the least to vote. The people who have access to smartphones and data and Wi-Fi are not the people who have registered to vote. Majority of the people who have registered to vote are in that generation that wouldn't necessarily, and also that LSM, that demographic that wouldn't necessarily have access to those things. So how do we get those manifestos to the people, without them having to log in somewhere and find a phone and
also outside of campaign season for some kind of
just in
voting as an
general.
everyday educational format for people.
Also, to add on to that, a lot of our political figures, if they'll excuse me for saying so, are quite generationally out of touch as well.
That's a fact.
They're old. He said they're old.
The youth of today and the youth back then, I feel like we are the most privileged youth. The difference is we don't exercise our rights properly.
The youth of today want things to happen now, and they want that change now. And you can see it in every single day life when someone is there as a young person at the bar asking for a drink. Ngifuna manje. So that's the difference. I think the instant gratification is what the youth of today are always about.
I think the youth, they have different pressures than we had. And I think they're doing much better than we ever did, yeah.
Let's take a quick ad break. Welcome back to Choose or Lose, where we unpack some of the pertinent issues the youth face in South Africa after 30 years of democracy. It is still I, Eugene Khoza.
And I am Lerai. And together with our parliament, we're going to be navigating a series of prompts that consist of hot button issues facing our country today. And here's our next one. I'll start off with the stats just to marinate your brain, okay? Young people between the ages of 16 and 29 made up the majority of first-time 2024 registrations at 78.31%. That's from the IEC, okay? Tell me how true this resonates with you. I am a well-informed voter. I love the reaction over here. We've got a funny face and Ganu just ate a lemon.
Because you would think that I of all people would know, but I'm one of those voters who I'm informed when it's closer to election time. Also, my audience is on TikTok, and TikTok now opened an elections portal with the IEC, so I know that after this conversation, I will be an informed voter.
Just not right now?
Yeah, same here. I think I'm a well-informed voter, but it is because I took an initiative to become informed. But right now I'm just thinking of a Sipho in Tembisa who doesn't have access to that information.
Exactly.
What about
Feels like my conspiracy theory is taking flight now. Do you feel like you're a well-informed voter?
Yes, I do. I've always said this election is the second most important election in our country's history. We're now looking back at 30 years, and now we're voting with a sense of, okay, we've seen the trial run. Now let's vote to see what happens for the next 30 years.
Yep.
Spot on.
So the first one was a beta version. The 30 years. We were testing out the kinks. Yeah,
That was a long beta, if I could say so. Let's hear from this side of the room. How are you feeling on this side?
I'm definitely an informed voter because there's a very important website, the Manifesto Meter, that has taken all the parties' manifestos and put them in one place for you. So you just click one link and then you can read all the party manifestos.
That's Manifesto Meter.
Yes.
I love it when we get resources.
brilliant.
You know where to go and have a look then.
My TikTok is my source, bro. I'm well informed. I know what I'm voting for already and stuff like that. So easy.
Okay, so it seems that leading up to the elections, people seem to be on board. But we have a trend of people not showing up on the day. To support what I've just said, previous elections had an overall of 26.7 million registered voters, but only 17.6, that's about 10 million less, people actively participated in the elections. So, what's your take on